My name is Deziree Larson. I just graduated from St. Norbert College in 2009 with a degree in graphic design and Japanese. I went to Japan in the summer of '08 with 3 other students to study the Japanese aesthetic and compare the way women are presented in the pop art forms of anime and manga with their portrayal in traditional Japanese theater, such as kabuki. Our group was Alyssa Bayer, a theater major, myself, Paul McEnany, who was our tech guy, and Caitlin Yeager, who was also an art major. Dr. Torimoto came along with us. She's professor of modern language and literature at St. Norbert College. She was our contact person and helped us with our Japanese when ours wasn't good enough. While we were in Japan, we had interviews with 6 different companies and museums that are involved in Japanese pop art. Our first stop was in Tokyo at the Tokyo Anime Center. We interviewed Mr. Yamaguchi, who is the vice president of the Association of Japanese Animations. We asked all of our interviewees what they do in the company, asked them about their experience with girls' comics or animations, and why they think the creators made the female characters the way they did. The second interview was with the director of the Suginami Animation Museum, which is an interactive museum that's famous for its timeline of anime. He told us about the history of anime and manga. We also got to browse the museum. In addition to the interviews and companies we visited, we also got to go see the sights and stop at temples and shrines. We went to Kaminarimon in Asakusa in Tokyo, which is a temple famous for its marketplace. Our next interview was at Shogakukan Publishing Company, the biggest publishing company in Japan. We got to visit their girls' comic section and interview the director of the girls' magazine, Chow, which is for girls in grade school. They also let us tour their animation studio, and we got to see the people at work making the newest anime that Shogakukan is going to be producing. Our next interview was at Shueisha, the second biggest publishing company in Japan. We got to speak to Arina Tanemura, who is a popular girls' comic artist. She told us about her comics, how she creates her characters, and what kind of characters she wants them to be to inspire girls. As another part of our cultural experience, we went up north on the main island to a small city called Aomori, where they hold a festival every summer called the Nebutsa Festival. We dressed up in traditional Japanese summer kimonos. A lot of the other people who would be there would be wearing the same attire, so we wanted to fit in. The floats in the parade are made completely out of paper and wood. They're on 2 wheels, and guys will push them down the street. They parade them around through the day. People will walk around behind them singing, dancing. There's music and really large drums. At night is when the floats are most spectacular. On the night of the second day, they'll actually light the floats on fire and push them into the ocean. On our way back down to Tokyo from Aomori, we stopped in a city called Sendai to experience another festival, the Star Festival. While we were in Sendai, we got to stay at a traditional Japanese-style hotel where they served us traditional food. All of the hostesses were dressed in kimonos. Our rooms were set up in traditional style, so we had the Japanese futons that laid on the floor, sliding doors, all that fun stuff. Back in Tokyo, our next interview was at the Hasegawa Machiko Museum with the director of the anime, Sazae-san. Sazae-san is a comic strip that's been running since World War II and was turned into an anime in the 60s. At the museum, there is a map of Tokyo where people can actually create their own little houses and place it on the block and see where it sits in relation to the character Sazae-san's house. Sazae-san is a typical Japanese woman who is trying to adjust to life after World War II with the modernization of Japan. Our next interview was at Tatsunoko Production Company. We spoke with the director of the archives, who told us about how Tatsunoko began, how the styles of drawing anime have changed over the years, and how the different styles affect how people will look at the show. Our next stop was in Kyoto, where we had the most interesting experience, I think, of the entire trip. We stopped at Sakura Maiko Studio, where they actually dressed us up as Maiko, which are geishas in training. Geishas are the ideal Japanese woman, have put on makeup to make them look perfectly white with bright red lips. They learn all sorts of different traditional art forms. They learn how to serve tea, they sing, they dance, they play traditional instruments. They are everything that a woman should be. The kimonos were beautiful and heavy. I think we had to put on about 12 different layers of clothing in order to be dressed up like this. They gave us wigs, which were terribly heavy. Paul, being a guy, was dressed up as a samurai instead of as a Maiko. Kyoto is very famous for its many temples and shrines. We stopped at Kiyomizu-dera, which is a temple high up in the mountains famous for a mountain spring. The Golden Pavilion, which is plated completely with gold, not yellow paint. Our last stop was in Osaka at the Osamu Tezuka Museum. Osamu Tezuka is considered the father of modern anime. He did comics such as Astro Boy, and he was the first one to use dynamic paneling to make manga and anime the way that we know it now. We spoke with the director of the museum, Ms. Matsumoto, who told us about Tezuka, his work, how he started, and why they set up the museum. That was the end of our 3-week visit in Japan. I think I learned more in those 3 weeks than in probably a year of my life before. その研究プロジェクトの直でたくさん習いました。とても楽しかったです。さあ、それではさよなら。I said, and we learned a lot on the research project and it was a lot of fun. So, goodbye.